to Midnight Cry. I'm your host, Terry Baldwin, and we have in the studio again, Dr. Daniel Shayesteh. Welcome, Daniel.
Good to be with you, Terry.
We have an interesting subject tonight. We're going to discuss with Daniel Islam and Saudi Arabia. Now, to start with, Daniel, can you give us a bit of background, historical background on Saudi Arabia?
Terry, Saudi Arabia has been always a strategic place for the world, and situated just by the sea, and a route for ships that was so important even in ancient time. And that was there was a competition between Eastern Empire and Western Empire, Persian and Roman and Greek, that to have dominance over the land Saudi Arabia, but it was not easy for them. And that's why you see that in the history, Iranian dominated the very southern part of Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Romans were ruling over the northern part of Saudi Arabia, present Syria and Jordan. And the middle part was not really easy for them to come and penetrate. It was dry land, really. Life was not that much active there. So as it is important now because of the oil base in Saudi Arabia, in that time also it was important, and that's why many powerful governments were thinking about Saudi Arabia.
So Daniel, the birth of Islam in Saudi Arabia in the 7th century, did this happen in an atmosphere of peace?
It was to some extent. I mean, there were tribal war in that land, but really Saudi Arabia in the ancient time was a peaceful place, and the southern part was very famous. Yemen, the important place, and northern part was run by Nabateans, you know, where kingdom, and in Arabic it's called Ambati. And there even, you know, Nabatean section, you know, Petra was really a city of peace, that a city of refuge actually. And because of the free atmosphere and to some extent democratic atmosphere, people were able really to choose their religion, or even to claim a religion, or to say that I am prophet. You see, if you read Islamic traditions, that people were free to call themselves prophets. They were going to the central holy city in that time and standing in front of the idols, claiming prophecy and prophethood, and calling themselves prophets. And in that free environment that Muhammad was able to say that he was a Muslim, and actually he moved from Mecca to Medina. Medina was the most free city really, occupied 70% by Jewish people. They dominated over that, and they had a very successful business there. And the city really had a, you know, democratic atmosphere there, and in the midst of that democracy, Muhammad was able, you know, through a tribe, he took refuge there to bring Islam and say he was a prophet, and even freely he attached himself to the prophets in the Bible. The tension really started after Muhammad started to bother Jews and pushing them to follow Islam, and became a problem for people in the holy city in Kaaba. It arose after that, the problem and tension, and the war of Islam really started from 622 and 23, and after that it became really a land of bloodshed.
Yeah, so we have the situation where you've got Persia from the east, the Persian Empire. You've got the Romans from the west. You've got Christianity is predominant in the area. You've got Zoroastrianism is predominant. You've got the Jewish religion. Why is it then you have Islam is born, it's different. What's your explanation?
Terry, for 13 years at the beginning of Muhammad's ministry, really you cannot name his movement Islam. You cannot call the religion Islam, because he was continually going to church according to Islamic references. His wife was always interested in taking him to the church and to priest for concerning every matter and issue. So it was not really a religion Islam as far as we understand from Islamic books. The world Islam really as a state religion, and Muhammad as a statesman, started after he moved from Mecca to Medina and became a religion and claimed superiority over other religion and proclaim, victory, and it had to be dominant. Now, as you mentioned, Christianity was spread everywhere really because of the power of the East, and also Zoroastrianism. You see that in Islam, there are signs of Zoroastrianism in Islam, and many signs of Christianity and Judaism in Islam, and especially the majority of saying of the Quran and the Islamic tradition and Muhammad's life story just has signs of Christianity, oral Christianity and Judaism. You understand that his tendency was toward more toward the east rather than, toward the west rather than east, Persian Empire, and we understand from there. But why Islam really became his religion and own religion, not Christianity, even though we know that Islam was under the effect of Christianity and Judaism, it really happened after he moved from Mecca to Medina. He traveled, and he was alone there. He took refuge in a tribe, because in ancient Saudi Arabia, life was not really secure in the middle of Saudi Arabia, where present Mecca is or Medina is. You had to take refuge in a tribe. If you didn't take refuge, and then you would be sold as a slave. So he took refuge in that tribe, and unfortunately that tribe was enemy to Jews. And Muhammad gradually started to express that hostility toward Jews, and eventually killed many Jews and forced them to exile. And after that, really, Islam became an independent religion of Christianity and Judaism. And mainly Muhammad used Christian Gnosticism after that to criticize Christians and Jews. You see, in the first era of his ministry, he never spoke about the sonhood of Jesus Christ. It was after he moved there, became Islam. And that Islam, unfortunately, came even after Muhammad became more harsher, that now we have that harsher Islam that radical Muslims are depending on that and trying to get rid of all other religions and beliefs.
Yes, Daniel, Western scholarship is very, very good at dissecting things, pulling things apart, looking at things under the microscope. And you know as well as myself that in the last few years especially, Western scholarship have done a lot of work on the early history, the archaeology of the Arab Peninsula area from the time that Islam was born. And a lot of scholarship now is leaning very heavily that the accounts, the historical accounts from the Islamic records are not accurate when they're describing the direction of prayer for the Muslims that talk about this place called Mecca. Most of the scholarship now that I've been reading, they're saying no. The evidence from the ground, from where you put the spade in the ground, from history and from archaeology, is that this place of direction of prayer, this center that Islam focuses on now, was actually further to the north. Definitely further to the north. I mean, I've read scholars that are saying they might conclude on slightly different places in the north, but it's generally though they're saying no, it can't be Mecca. It can't be this present location. Can you speak to us a little bit about that?
Okay, when I was in Iran, especially after the revolution of '79, that we became more radical and Islamic and got involved in politics and sent many people to Mecca, and many people went for pilgrimage. I spoke to some of them, got information from them. That was so discouraging to me, because what I knew about Mecca, according to Islamic references, was Mecca is a full of pasture, green area, and cultivable area. You can do farming there because Muhammad's father Abdullah was farming there. There are creeks there, I mean, beautiful mountains there, and people were coming and saying to us, there is no sign of life there. It's a desert, sand there. There are no mountains there. So it was, creating doubt in my mind. What's happening there? That's not the Mecca we understand from Islamic books. So that doubt was there always. Why is that so? And also in history, I knew that was a group of Muslims were killing some other Muslims for going, to pilgrimage to the present Mecca. Karmatian were a group of Saudi Arabian that they rebelled against Haji, those who were going to Mecca, and actually they make Bahrain as their central place, and they were saying that you should not go to this Mecca. They were always, saying it's illegal according to Islam, killed a lot of people, confused, a lot of Muslims were confused for centuries. So that was in my mind, what is happening? I do not have any response for that. And thanks be to technology, and I had an opportunity to travel from that country, come to the Western country, and full of scholars in this country who have freedom. Their investigation was a great response to me. I said, my goodness, how we were robbed in Islamic countries. My parents, my forefathers, for centuries they robbed.
Would you ever, by the way, back in Iran, in those days, when you were Muslim, did you ever speak to your friends about and question, why is this description of Mecca so different from from the reports that we're getting of people coming back from Mecca on pilgrimage?
Absolutely. There was a Haji. There was, when you go to Mecca, come, and that's your nickname, Haji. I said to him, we were close to each other. He said, I never go there again. This is so strange. This is so, shocking to me. So people were expressing themselves, really, this is not what we know about Islam. I don't know why. We didn't know the response. But now, archaeological discoveries, the geographical matching, all of them are saying to us, Islam's holy city was in Petra, in Jordan, present Petra now. Muhammad was born in Petra. Petra was 100 years after Muhammad's after Muhammad claimed prophethood. 100 years was the prayer direction for Muslims. Muhammad prayed toward Petra, and Omar, Abu Bakr, Ali, Osman, and other leaders for 100 years. It was after 100 years that change happened there, and it really makes sense to me now. Wow, mountains. They are speaking that's in Petra, not in Saudi Arabia, and everything.
Well, it's when you read the accounts actually in Islamic literature, and then you read the descriptions of further north, like example Petra, it has a more logical fitting, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It did to me when I was first reading this scholarship, and I was thinking, well, yes, it does seem more logical that these descriptions are not about Mecca itself, but are describing this area. Is this talked about, do you think, amongst Muslim scholarship? Even privately, do you think they're discussing this?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. As far as I know, they never speak about that. And we didn't have that courage and dare. We didn't dare to go and speak to a leader, because you could be in problem. They could make problem for you. I haven't heard, but the scholars really, after 100 of Muhammad's claim for prophethood, they knew that. They were really divided between two, empires, Umayyads and Abbasids, some other figures who were serving them individually. They were really divided among them. They were confused. Even Islamic scholars were confused for 100 years, from almost 725 something onward for 100 years. Scholars were confused. Scholars didn't know what to do. Some of them were pro-Umayyad, the others were pro-Abbasid, so they were speaking pro for their own government. But many people were confused actually in that era. Some people were going to Petra. We didn't know that. We Muslims did not know that people, a century were going, some of them were going to Petra for pilgrimage, and some of them were going to Mecca for pilgrimage. So, but after that, you see the quietness there. I mean, one or two, for example, a few scholars in Turkey and others, they are just speaking a little bit of that, not the whole story. For example, they are criticizing Karmatian, why taking the black stone and smashing it? Black stone is so important in Muslims' life.
Yes.
And for that reason, this Muslim group come and smash it because it was taken to the present Mecca. People always believed that black stone had to stay in Petra. That was the black stone. Came from heaven to Adam and Eve. Actually it came as white and then became black because of the sin of Adam and Eve. So it was there, and that's why they are questioning that, but not fully informing Muslim people about that.
One of the things that amazed me, that if Mecca is so important, I think in the Quran it's only mentioned once.
Absolutely.
Is this correct?
It's correct. That's, it speaks in Surah Al-Fat in chapter 48, Surah 48. And Terry,
I mean, that's absolutely amazing, because when you read the scriptures, the Jewish Christian scriptures, of course there's a focus to do with Israel and to do with Jerusalem. And Jerusalem's mentioned many, many, many times. You come across it in the older Jewish scriptures, and then in the Christian scriptures from the life of Jesus onwards. You get the mention of Jerusalem because it's a central place geographically. I was actually really surprised when I was first told that Mecca was only mentioned once. Once in the whole of the Quran.
Only once.
I thought, if it's so important, why is it only once?
But the holy city, the house of Lord, mentioned several times more. And my doubt is this, Terry, because it is speaking about also the holy city called Becca.
Yes, that's right.
That's a change has happened later. They have really interpreted the Quranic verse and they have changed it. That's in Quran chapter 48, verse 24. The only place is saying Mecca, and the evidences really. I mean, the things are speaking to me. They are saying that it was replaced really with the word Becca. As in Quran chapter 3, verse 94, is speaking about that. And also it's very obvious from all Islamic books and from the Quran that always Muslims just learned that interference into the Quran and changing it from Muhammad, because Muhammad did in his own time.
Even the trading stories in Islamic literature, where they talk about Mecca, it's always a focus there. The trading caravans going from Mecca into Syria. And it's talking about thousands of Meccans travelling at some time, or caravans of thousands of camels going from Mecca to Syria. But when you read the scholarship of archaeological finds and history of that area, Mecca is not an important place. In fact, it doesn't get a mention.
Absolutely.
Other places get mentioned in North Arabia, but Mecca doesn't get a mention. In fact, the things that I've read from scholarship are saying that it could not have been such a major trading place as it's made out to be in Islamic literature.
Absolutely.
It couldn't have been.
You see, you look at the historical cities in Iran and in Rome and in Greece and in China. Historical cities, important cities, the center of trade, a city that Mecca, they are saying that a city that prepared thousands of armies to fight, to defend the city, they do not find any archaeological evidence in that city. No archaeological evidence. You see, Iran, Shusha, was a capital.
Yes, yes.
And government came, Islam came, destroyed that. They couldn't destroy that great pillars there,
That's
you know,
right, yes.
in rocks.
Yeah,
there.
the evidence is left there in the ground.
Absolutely.
You can go and dig and find evidence.
Absolutely,
Can't you? Yes.
and that's why a huge city, they are speaking in Islamic, you know, references, but when you go to Mecca, no evidences of that.
Yes.
How can it be?
That's right, yes. Yeah.
I mean, why there are evidences in Petra exactly is matching the holy city. Quran is speaking about that, and Islamic references. It's not matching at all Mecca. Why?
Daniel, why is it important, do you think, that Muslims need to know this history, that need to know the history of their own belief system? Why is that important, do you think?
You see, Terry, it broke my heart. I was a zealous Muslim. I loved Islam. When I really discovered that I was robbed, it really hurt. You know, I have got 80 family members in Iran. My nation in Iran, more than 70 million. 70 million, your nation, the nation you love, and you see they are robbed. And you really want to reveal that. You know, this is only I'm speaking. You can define that in a in a nationalistic way. I belong to that nation. I have got memories there. I have got friends there. I have got people there. But Terry, as a humankind also, we need to really help people to understand about their history and about their roots, Terry. It's so important. And if they do not know that, really they are going to always attach themselves to an Islam that always had fluctuated situation in politics, and politicians came just to deceive people. Imagine that 100-year people prayed toward Petra. If Petra really was so important for Muhammad, why Muslims shouldn't pray toward Petra?
Yeah.
You see, I'm not a Muslim.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter for me where they are praying, but I'm talking about the doctrine of Islam. What is this chaos? Why this great change really? And that's why you want really to create awareness among people. That's not the one you want in your life. You really want independence and understand your root.
Thank you, Daniel. That's so interesting. I want to continue, but unfortunately we've run out of time again.
Wonderful, Terry, to be with you always.
This is Midnight Cry, and thank you for being with us once again.